Okay, I'm so excited to introduce the panel for this session. Um, Jesse, will you advance the slide for me? I do have some housekeeping, and I know you guys have heard this all day long, but I've got to do it, so I'm going to do it like an auctioneer. The information presented during this session is not medical nor legal advice, nor is it intended to be substitute for medical or legal advice, diagnosis, or treatment. Always seek the advice of your physician and or attorney or other qualified health provider with questions concerning a medical condition. Immune Deficiency Foundation educational events offer a wide variety of presentations, including content developed by healthcare and life management professionals. The views and opinions expressed by guest speakers do not necessarily reflect the views and opinions of IDF. Thank you. Jesse, will you? Thank you. All right, so I want to introduce our panel of speakers tonight. Bear with me as I pull up their awesome bios. Let's see, we're going to start with Chase James. Chase is the president of Puzzle Engineering, a commercial construction company that builds playgrounds. Based in Southern California, he brings extensive experience in leadership and management, having previously held positions within Starbucks. Chase is passionate about raising awareness for the chronic illnesses diagnosed with ITP at a young age, followed by a diagnosis of CVID in 2006. He actively advocates for individuals living with similar conditions outside of work. Chase cherishes his time with his wife and 2 sons, and he enjoys hiking and reading as well. Thank you, Chase, for being here. Give Chase a round of applause. I am going to introduce Jesse McCall. Jesse McCall is one of our Youth Advisory Council members, affectionately known as YAC. Jesse is currently pursuing his Bachelor's of Science in Psychology with a minor in Child Development. He will graduate in May of 2025. Jesse was diagnosed with CVID in 2006 and has been receiving treatment since late 2006. Jesse became involved with the IDF in 2018 and became a member of the YAC here in 2020, where he and his fellow compatriots help organize and facilitate Zoom meetings for teens, young adults during the pandemic, as well as help me to develop educational programming such as this topic and a few of the other topics. The gardening topic, some of the insurance topic for the young adults, all came from the YAC brainstorming sessions. So we like to reflect the voices of our youth in our education programming. So thank you, Jesse. In his spare time, he enjoys reading, hiking, and spending time with his family and friends. Give Jesse a round of applause. Saving the best for last because Jersey girls stick together.
The granny zebra.
The granny zebra. Originally from New Jersey, however, Carol now resides in Ohio, where her sons also live. Her sons are in the medical field, as well as Carol has spent a good portion of her professional career in the medical field. Carol is also one of our Get Connected group leaders. What group are you leading right now? Ohio. Okay. Because she has led other groups, so. Carol enjoys volunteering and encouraging hope and pride in others, and pride in our stripes is what she wrote. So give a round of applause to Carol.
Thank you. Thank you.
So this session is going to be a little casual. We're going to hear from our panelists, of course, but also it's very interactive. We want to not only hear from our panelists, but we want to hear from you all too. So don't be surprised if I throw questions out to you all as well, and you end up with a mic in your face, okay? If you don't want to answer, or you don't want to ask a question or answer a question, just politely decline. All right, let's get to know each other. Jesse, are you ready? Because this is your activity. Nope? You want me to do it?
Sure, I'll do it. All right, I don't know.
You want this mic?
Sure. All right, so everyone, look to your right. If there's no one to your right, look to your left. If there's no one to either, turn in your chair or imagine there's someone to your right or left. All
Imaginary
right,
friends.
so in 15, hold on. What? In 15 seconds, I want you to give your name and your short story to the person next to you. One at a time. So go ahead with the first person. I'm counting down. And stop. All right. Now the next person. Introduce yourself to the other. And stop. All right.
Do the hokey pokey.
Now that we have done that part, let's see what's next. Raise of hands, how many people started with their diagnosis after their name? A few people, awesome. Led with their diagnosis. So like said, hi, my name is blank, and I was diagnosed with blank. So, not many of you led with your diagnosis, which is one of the things that we're going to talk about today is how to make sure that you are able to identify yourself not by your diagnosis, but use your diagnosis to identify a part of yourself. So today we're going to be discussing, goals, dreams, aspirations for your future, or looking back on the past and seeing how this might have changed your life, your outlook in the past. With PI and the troubles of that, but also just in general. This isn't about just your PI or if you're undiagnosed. This is about who you are as a person, every bit of you.
So, going back to that, okay. Thank you, Jesse. Thank you for that exercise. Okay, so going back to that, that's the question. How do you all identify personal strengths and interests that aren't identified by PI? So those of you that did not lead with your diagnosis, where did that come from? How do you all on the panel, where did you, was there a time where you did lead with your diagnosis, and how did you make that switch, and how do you go about identifying your own personal strengths and interests that aren't defined by your diagnosis? And anyone who wants to start can just start talking.
I think for me, the biggest thing that helped me to identify myself was time. At the start of all of my journey, it was sort of uncertain, unknown, and I didn't know about the IDF. I don't even know if the IDF was around back then. So it was very lonely. So I was defined by my diagnosis because that's all I knew, and I kind of just assumed I would get sicker and sicker and eventually pass away. As time went on, I realized, oh, okay, I'm not going to pass away. And I started thinking about the future, having a family, having kids, and that I could do that. And once I realized I could do that, live a normal life, and once a week getting injections, I was able to sort of define myself as more than just illness. I mean, I have an illness, and honestly, I don't think I've met a person in this world who's perfectly healthy. Everyone's got something. So I was able to realize that there's more to it than just an illness. There's family, there's friends, there's adventure, there's things I can do and things I can't, depending on how I'm feeling.
For me, you have to have such trust with the other party. Like, you don't lead with, hi, I have a really bad immune deficiency. Because back in the day when I first started, if you said anything about immune systems, they'd say, oh, you have AIDS. Oh, no, it's not acquired. It's primary. Something in my genetic system has turned off, and now I have the amnesia. And the amnesia is cured when my donors give me the ability to find the bad guys in my body that my body's made very comfortable, and they fight it off. So the trust has to be there before I can share. I know at work too, with all my years of working, it was only after 5 or 6 years where I said, look, I need Fridays off for infusions or whatever. But that is not something that I even broached at any kind of, I could do it on the weekends at that point. And anyway, so you just need trust before you can share that information. So I don't leave that off, and if it comes down to it, like I can't do something, I have to miss a dinner, or I can't do that because my nurse is going to be there, I share now, again, with people that I trust.
Yeah, definitely. So I've done a similar presentation for the teen and young adults, and something I said in that, which I've heard pretty good feedback from, was people are not entitled to your story. So when you meet someone off the street, they're not entitled to know your whole story. They don't need to know your diagnosis. If you've been friends with someone for 10, 15 years and you haven't felt comfortable sharing your diagnosis, you may not feel comfortable. And that's not something wrong with you. That's not necessarily something wrong with them. It just means that it's not the right person or the right time. So I've found that usually when I introduce myself and lead with my diagnosis, it's at doctor's appointments. Because at doctor's appointments, that's one of the first things they want to know. That's what they're treating. So you say your name, your birth date, whatever other identifying information they want, and then it's usually, I have this, this, and this. I recently switched primary care physicians as I moved to a new town for schooling. And I went in and I said, look, I have PI primarily, and then I have, 15 plus other comorbidities and other diagnoses. And it was a very long conversation. And I was very appreciative of him because he looked at me and he said, I can't do this. I cannot be your main provider. I can be your doctor. I can take care of your, primary care needs, but I will not pretend to understand your diagnosis. I will not pretend to understand what you've been through. So for specialist help, seek a specialist. And that takes a lot for a doctor who's been practicing for however many years to say, look, I can't do this. And I take a very similar approach when I think of sharing my story with my friends, is that are they going to understand? Are they going to take the approach of, okay, this is a part of you and that's that? Or are they going to take the approach of, this is you and it defines you? So that is usually where I find the differentiating factor between, do I share or do I leave it alone? I have some great friends that I've been friends with for several years. They know I have an illness. They don't know what it is. They don't know what it entails. I have some friends I met, 6 months ago. They know my illness. They know what it entails. They know my day-to-day. It doesn't matter to them. They are only going to know what you share with them, and you are entitled to your own story. They are not.
True.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there's a lot to deal with when you live with PI, and it can be challenging on finding the right people to share with. And I think a lot of us maybe struggle too with trauma dumping on those people. So we have to learn not everyone's used to the way we talk, and how, even though it sounds very serious, some of us, that's just our everyday, sticking needles in, that's a normal weekend for us. Whereas for some people, that's beyond the pale. So it can be challenging to find the right people to sort of share that with. I like what you said. Carol, I like what you said when we were talking before about sometimes the stress can be a lot and you just sort of put it aside for later.
Mm-hmm. I do. And that comes with, that's just my coping skill. And my Jody's over there still, but if I can't deal with this right now, I'm going to put it to the 7 o'clock hour, and at that point, that's my 7 o'clock that I will focus my life or focus on it, because I've got other stuff in the mix right now, dealing with patients or dealing with other things that I have to do. But if something comes up, I turf it and I get to it when I can, as opposed to if it's stewing in my head and making me cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. But no, that's true. It's just, that's the only way that I've been able to function for many years now, going through a divorce and all kinds of stuff. You just put it to the side and say, I'll get to you at 6:45. I'm going to put an hour for you, and then I'll be able to deal with it at that point.
How about from the audience?
Can't hear you.
How about from the audience? Have any tips or ways that they go beyond their diagnosis to identify themselves? Yeah.
Yeah, the word I used, which kind of explains what you said, Caroline, was compartmentalize. Everything else. Does this work? Okay, there we go. Yeah, you focus on certain times, like you mentioned, to do your treatments and try to knock it all out within a certain period of time. And if you set the parameters yourself and you're dedicated on sticking to them and not letting it bleed into your normal life, when you're at work, you're at work. When you're with your friends, you're not taking calls from your doctor. It's compartmentalizing is like the one word that can solve all of it.
That does sound like compartmentalizing. It is, and my tongue is so tied. But I think a former licensed clinical social worker, we would say that's called boundaries, right? That's creating boundaries. But they're both kind of in the same boat. But that's what I heard when I was like, that takes a lot of creating boundaries, which isn't an easy thing to do. It's a little easier to kind of maybe set something to the side as long as you go back, right? Because that's the key. You can't just set it to the side, and never go back and revisit it. You have to revisit it. So if you say at 7 o'clock, I'm going to have a cry, and at 7 o'clock, you do your best to cry, right? You have to go back and revisit it. But that takes a lot, Josh. So that's what I'm saying. Like it takes a lot of character to really build boundaries, and that's really important.
Yeah, something I remember from Miss Carroll's explanation of her boundaries when we first met was that at 7 o'clock she has her cry.
Hey Jesse, I got to get you to talk into the mic because we're recording.
Something that Miss Carroll said that I really stuck out to me when we first met was that when she compartmentalizes or sets aside time to focus on something that's hard, she'll say, okay, at 7 o'clock, I will have my cry. At 8 o'clock, life resumes. It doesn't mean that this doesn't matter. It doesn't mean that I'm ignoring this. But if I have limited energy, some people use the analogy spoons. If I have limited energy, I cannot continuously bleed energy into something else when I need that energy for a different topic.
Yeah, you can't pour from an empty cup.
Amen.
Hey there.
Hey.
I compartmentalize as well, but I have emotional reactions to things, and it turns my brain off. So depending on what kind of a day I'm having or what's going on with my health, I've just learned skills, or again, the boundaries. You're always considerate of your best friend, your people that you work with, but you give yourself the same kind of love that you would give your best friend. And if I have a work meeting, but I just got some bad news and I'm emotionally reacting, I'm just like, hey, I can't think until I process these emotions. And so throughout my life, I've found things that will help me process. Maybe it takes 5 minutes, maybe it takes 10 minutes, maybe it takes half a day. But I think just really getting to know yourself and how you respond to bad, good, and ugly, and honoring that with how you live in the world, situation to situation, has really helped me, be at peace with everything.
For sure. And I think you have to respect, too, the fact that what we're dealing with is hard, and it's okay to be upset and just say, gosh, I'm tired sometimes.
And give yourself permission to nap. Woohoo! The nap is so restorative, and I think it's so important. So if you feel like, you can't just put your head on the desk when you're working, but if you feel on a weekend that you put, the Hallmark channel on or whatever and snore through it, go for it, because that's what your body needs at that point in time. And the Hallmark Channel is great to sleep to.
Sometimes doing nothing is doing something.
Mm-hmm.
Hi. Something I do that, of course, depends on the person's individual situation, but I look at the goals, the dreams, all the things I want to do, and I don't think about how that will fit into my illness. I think about how my illness will fit into that. So if I want to travel somewhere, I plan, okay, the flight, how do I afford it, this, and this, like a normal person would do, and then I then look, okay, and then what am I going to do my infusions and things like that, which helps.
One of the things with
That's
our
a great way to think about it.
Sorry.
I'm sorry. No, go ahead, Carol.
One of the things with our disease is we're constantly planning. Well, if I do my infusion, if you're sub-Q, if I do my infusion on this night and then I don't have a chance to do it, and I usually do Wednesday nights, and you're always thinking, well, I'm going to feel pretty scuzzy on such and such a day because I just have had my infusion or whatever, and I'm going to need to take a me day. So we're constantly thinking about what's next in our bodies. Oh, I have a doctor's appointment, I've got this, I got to do a blood draw. But all that stuff, it's like, I call it being pecked to death by a duck. It's not enough to wound you, but it's just being pecked. And my boys are old now, they have children of their own. But when you're toddlers and you're running around, it's just constantly just biting at you, and it's like you got to just take a step back and say what needs to be done first. And sometimes it's you have to be done first.
Thank you. That's a really great discussion that we just had. There's so many great things, like taking care of you. I love that. Like, let me fit my illness into my life, not let me fit my life. Or no, how did you say it? You said it beautiful, and I can't. You said it more like, let me fit my life into my illness and not my illness into my life. So it's some effect of that. I love that. That's a great way to think beyond the diagnosis. So, my apologies for messing that up. I usually never get the butt of the joke right. That's why I don't tell jokes. Okay, advance the slide for me, Jesse. Activities and interests. How can we explore activities and interests that bring us joy and fulfillment outside the context of PI? A lot of your bios included, I love to go hiking, I love to go kayaking, I love reading, I love going to the plays. So how do you find interests and activities? And then, not only that, but how do you find the motivation to kind of follow through on that on days that you really don't want to?
Who's first? I'll do it. I'm Gabby. So my whole life is I like to give. All right, I can talk the paint off walls. So I am a volunteer. Have been volunteering with the IDF since 2007. I do my Get Connected groups, which I love, and it's so nice. We have a little core, and new people usually join. But that's an hour where we just sit and talk what's going on with each other. But I go to plasma collection places, and I bring lifesavers to the donors and thank them. And that's such an emotional visit, usually because the people that donate don't have a clue where that stuff goes that comes out of their arm. And I explain to them, with my boys being in trauma and emergency room nurses, that, plasma is used all the time. It keeps babies alive and people like me alive. And we just sit there and cry, because usually that's so emotional, because they had no idea. I've been a peer support person where the newly diagnosed get my number from the IDF, and I talk to them about their new normal and explain a little bit, because sometimes their rug has been pulled out from under them. But sometimes it's good to come out of yourself and talk and share. It's a puzzle piece that's missing, and you're getting a puzzle piece from your donors. It's, yep, you're gonna feel bloated. Yep, you're gonna feel this, or yep, you might get a headache, but you're going to be better and healthy. So, so I just like to share my story, and I just think it's important when I'm feeling pretty yucky to do something like that, and I'm always available. So, except when I'm at work. But other than that, I do like that part of my volunteering.